So today, as you know, Canada's new government is announcing the first set of projects that we believe are both in Canada's national interest and are feasible to be built.
For months, the spotlight has been fixed on tariffs, LNG exports, and the idea of Canada turning itself into an energy superpower. But energy is only one part of the story. The real contest of the 21st century is not just about oil or gas. It is about the minerals that sit beneath the ground and power the technologies of the future.
Construction on the McIlvenna Bay mine near Cretan is over halfway complete. And when it's finished, 5,000 tons of zinc, copper, gold, and silver can be pulled from the ground every day. Now, it's part of 5 nation building projects Prime Minister Mark Carney wants approved.
Copper, nickel, and cobalt are the backbone of electric vehicles, batteries, artificial intelligence, and advanced chips. Whoever controls the supply of these materials controls the pace and price of global industry. Canada's leadership knows this, and that is why the new list of nation-building projects points to something larger. Canada is no longer content to be known simply as an LNG hub. It is positioning itself as a strategic source of critical minerals, a role that could redefine its place in the world economy. The first wave of projects includes 2 mines that could immediately reshape Canada's mineral map. In Saskatchewan, the McIlvenna Bay project is designed to be the country's first net-zero copper mine. It will feed not only domestic industries, but also smelting operations in Quebec, ensuring that the value chain stays within Canadian borders. In British Columbia, the Red Chris copper and gold expansion promises to boost national copper production by more than 15%. It will operate with sharply lower emissions and in partnership with the Tahltan Nation, embedding reconciliation into economic development. Beyond these, the government has its eyes on longer-term opportunities. Ontario's Ring of Fire region contains some of the largest untapped deposits of nickel and chromite, key ingredients for electric vehicle batteries and stainless steel. In Quebec and Labrador, the Labrador Trough offers vast reserves of iron ore and other minerals that can anchor the next generation of clean steel and energy storage. Together, these projects outline a complete vision, not just digging resources out of the ground, but creating a mine-to-market supply chain that links Canadian miners, refiners, ports, and trading partners. The importance of this shift is best understood in the context of global competition. The United States, even as it imposes tariffs on Canadian metals, remains heavily dependent on foreign supplies of critical minerals. China, meanwhile, dominates refining and processing capacity worldwide, turning raw ore into finished inputs for batteries and electronics. Canada's push is aimed at breaking this imbalance. By developing its own processing facilities and building secure corridors from northern mines to coastal ports, Canada can present itself as a clean and reliable alternative. This is more than economics, it is leverage. If Canada succeeds, every electric vehicle built in North America, every data center powered by advanced batteries, and every chip that requires rare metals will be linked back to Canadian supply. Europe, too, is looking for dependable partners to reduce its reliance on China. Ottawa sees the opening and is moving quickly. In this sense, the critical minerals strategy is a quiet counterpunch. While Washington's tariffs sought to box Canada in, they are instead pushing Ottawa to expand its reach and make itself indispensable in the industries that matter most for the future. Challenges remain. Mining is expensive. Northern infrastructure is thin, and environmental and Indigenous partnerships must be carefully managed. Yet the new Major Projects Office promises faster decisions, giving Canada a chance to move sooner than in the past. If projects like McIlvenna Bay, Red Chris, and the Ring of Fire advance on time, Canada will move from being seen as an energy supplier to becoming a strategic hub for minerals the world cannot do without. In that world, tariffs lose their edge, and Canada gains lasting leverage.
We begin with Prime Minister Mark Carney's European tour. Canada's push to diversify trade and economic partnerships amid a trade war with the U.S.
Canada is no longer reacting cautiously. Recently, Prime Minister Mark Carney has carried his message to Europe, presenting a clear plan to reduce reliance on a single market and to expand Canada's global reach. The focus is on energy, infrastructure, and critical minerals, sectors that give Canada real weight in international trade. These steps mark a deliberate acceleration of diversification. Rather than standing still, Canada is actively laying the foundation for new partnerships that stretch across the Atlantic and with upcoming projects on the Pacific coast into Asia as well. What matters most is that diversification is not framed as a defensive move. It is a proactive decision to anchor Canada in multiple trade networks at once.
Canada already is an energy superpower, but one long connected to one market, the United States, now trying to connect to many more.
The most powerful tools in this diversification are pipelines, ports, and LNG projects. The Trans Mountain expansion, completed at a cost of 34 billion Canadian dollars, is already changing flows. At the start of operations, shipments were split evenly between the US and Asia. Now, in August 2025, roughly 60% of heavy oil is sailing across the Pacific and only 40% south to American refineries. This shows the speed at which Canada has rebalanced. At the same time, Ottawa is moving ahead with new corridors.
With respect to Churchill, what's interesting about Churchill, but there is much more to it than Contrecoeur in terms of what it potentially unlocks. So it unlocks, as you just said, LNG. It potentially unlocks pathways for critical minerals and links into Europe.
The Port of Churchill in Manitoba has been identified by Carney as one of the first projects in a national infrastructure drive. It is planned as a hub for liquefied natural gas, critical minerals, and direct trade links with Europe. The choice of Churchill is symbolic. By investing in a northern gateway, Canada signals that even remote regions can be integrated into a global supply chain, strengthening national unity while also unlocking export potential that had been overlooked for decades. Together with LNG Canada at Kitimat and talks on refining capacity in Japan, these initiatives are carving out new routes that bypass U.S. bottlenecks.
This is no longer about survival. Canada is beginning to compete directly with the United States in global energy markets. In Europe, where Trump settled for a 15% tariff cap after threatening higher levels, industries are still searching for stable and affordable suppliers. Canada steps in with new capacity, offering oil, gas, and minerals with lower shipping costs and fewer policy risks. In Asia, the Trans Mountain Line and Kitimat Terminal give Japanese and Korean buyers an alternative to U.S. exports. Even the technical details matter. At the Westridge Marine Terminal, Aframax tankers can only be loaded to 70 or 80% because of depth limits. With dredging, those ships could sail at full capacity, cutting costs per barrel and sharpening Canada's price edge. Each of these improvements tilts the balance further, making Canada not a junior partner, but a competitor that can win contracts Washington assumed were safe.
Trump's strategy was built on the idea that tariffs would make Canada yield. The reality is the opposite. Ottawa has kept the core protections of USMCA while building a global network that makes it stronger. Pipelines and ports are expanding Canada's reach. Europe and Asia are welcoming a partner that delivers energy without sudden policy shocks. The United States now faces the risk of losing a dependable supplier at home and confronting that same supplier abroad as a rival. What began as an attempt to weaken Canada has backfired. Canada is emerging as a more competitive, more independent player, able to challenge U.S. dominance in the very markets where Trump thought he held control.
If you took away tariffs, we could end up being a third world country. We're leading because of tariffs.
President Trump has tied his economic vision to tariffs. He recently warned that without them, the United States could slip into becoming a third world country. That message came just days after a federal appeals court ruled that much of his program, built on emergency powers, was unlawful. The administration is appealing, but the stakes are high.
And those sweeping tariffs have collected so far $210 billion. Now, if this appeal by the administration does not ultimately stand and the administration has to cease collecting tariffs on October 14th or has to pay back those tariffs, that gets a bit complicated.
If the Supreme Court does not side with the White House, the government may have to refund more than $200 billion already collected from American importers and retailers. Canada is watching closely. Prime Minister Mark Carney reminded Canadians that 85% of trade with the United States remains tariff-free under the current agreement. He described this as the best deal in the world, while noting sensitive sectors such as steel, aluminum, forestry, autos, and copper that need attention. The contrast is clear. Trump frames tariffs as a shield against collapse, while Canada emphasizes stability and preparation. Even before the court ruling, stress was visible in the American economy. The July job openings and labor turnover survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed 7.18 million jobs available against 7.2 million people seeking work. For the first time in years, job seekers outnumbered open positions. The same month's employment report revealed only 73,000 jobs created nationwide, a sharp slowdown. Industries felt the pressure unevenly. Healthcare and social assistance lost 181,000 job openings in July. Retail trade dropped by 110,000. Construction, manufacturing, and wholesale trade saw modest gains. These shifts highlight how Americans are finding it harder to secure steady work, just as tariffs raise costs for businesses. The uncertainty over whether tariffs will survive in court adds another layer of strain.
I last spoke to the president Monday evening. We spoke at length on a wide range of issues, including on trade, but geopolitical, other issues, labor issues, etc. It was a good conversation.
Against this backdrop, under Carney's leadership, Canada is strengthening key industries at home and preparing to expand its trade relationships beyond the U.S., while still keeping most cross-border commerce stable and tariff-free. Mark Carney has emphasized that the foundation of North American trade remains intact. By pointing to the 85% of commerce that flows tariff-free, he sends a message of reassurance to both Canadian industries and American partners. He acknowledges the trouble spots openly. Steel, aluminum, autos, and pharmaceuticals are under pressure from Washington's tariff focus. But rather than react with fiery rhetoric, his government is preparing for the scheduled review of the Canada-United States-Mexico agreement next year. Carney also revealed that he held a lengthy conversation with President Trump on the 1st of September, covering trade as well as geopolitical and labor issues. At the same time, Canada's top civil servant was in Washington meeting with American counterparts. This careful but active diplomacy underlines a key difference. Where Trump leans on drama and constant warnings, Canada relies on quiet engagement and strategic groundwork. The signal to Canadians is that their country is not powerless in the face of tariffs, but has tools, alliances, and preparation on its side. The clash of approaches could not be clearer. Trump's gamble is to hold up tariffs as the shield for American prosperity, even as courts challenge their legality, and labor data shows the strain. Canada, meanwhile, practices strategic patience. By emphasizing long-term stability, preparing for the CUSMA review, and keeping diplomatic channels open, Ottawa positions itself as the responsible partner in North America. The months ahead will test which strategy prevails. If tariffs are struck down or forced to be repaid, Trump's economic cornerstone could crack. If they survive, costs will still weigh heavily on U.S. businesses and consumers. Either way, Canada shows that it is ready, not just reacting. That steadiness may ultimately prove to be the stronger force in shaping the future of continental trade.